What's up, everybody? Welcome. Thank you for your patience here on Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. It is Thursday night, August 14th, 2025. It is preseason week number 2, Giants Jets, coming up at MetLife Stadium on Saturday night. Looking forward to that game, especially after talking with Kayvon today on Zoom and listening to the Giants pass rusher throw some shade Justin Fields and the Jets' way. This was very interesting coming from Thibodeau. He was asked to evaluate Justin Fields, having gone up against him in practice. And Thibodeau said, man, it's tough for quarterbacks right now, especially in practice, especially for us. I think he meant especially against us. He says, we've got guys like me, Burns, Dex, Chauncey Golston, Nacho. He was under a little bit of pressure, so I can't really give you a full analysis on what I think of him as a quarterback because he did have to run and scramble and do a lot of things. You guys have to probably take a look at that on your own. He deadpanned it. Like he just said it matter-of-factly, but definitely some shots fired there from number 5 across the way to the Jets starting quarterback. I don't know if this had anything to do with it or not, but interestingly enough, Tuesday after the joint practice in Florham Park, Justin Fields was asked at that time about what he thought of the Giants pass rush because the pass rush had done well both days, but they got off to a good start, the Giants defensive line on that first practice. And Fields named all of the Giants pass rushers of note except for Thibodeau. He pointed out Brian Burns. He pointed out Dexter Lawrence. He even pointed out the rookie, Abdul Carter, and didn't mention Thibodeau. So I don't know if that's related to Kayvon kind of throwing that shade Justin Fields in the Jets' way, but you got to love it. You got to love those kinds of barbs going back and forth and the chippiness. And really, you're going all week practicing against another team, going into game action. And then you kind of like seeing that edge. It's interesting looking at the way the Giants are behaving on that defensive line and on their defense and as a team, because they're talking about it feels different. They're talking about Russell Wilson helping set a different tone. They're discussing how, they're excited about what's to come. Now, they have shown a lot of humility, especially early on, by saying, we haven't done anything yet. We know that we look good on paper, but it doesn't matter unless we do it in the games that count. But you're starting to see some confidence brew there, and it's coming out in, some bravado, right? Like it's interesting. This team is kind of riding on a little bit of a high of feeling what's coming. And my read on why they're feeling so confident and they're so charged up. Now, listen, all these guys are professionals. They're professional athletes. They're motivating themselves, right? You heard Brian Burns talk about he's trying to take himself to another level, and that means doing things he's never done. He and Dexter Lawrence collaborating on that. Dexter Lawrence obviously always trying to play his best and be one of the best in the league. Kayvon Thibodeau has shown a ton of motivation on his side of things, preparation, consistency, work ethic, all those things showing through. But to me, the veterans, it seems, are all aware of what Abdul Carter is and what his talent level can add to that pass rush. And I think they all understand it actually has a chance to be really special there. So I think that's where it's kind of boiling over, like the confidence, the excitement, the enthusiasm. Kayvon taking that a little bit further than he might have thought he was going to going into it. That's my read on things, is that they're legitimately excited about it. Like they know that they have to win and they have to do it or it doesn't matter. And they're playing down at this point Carter because it's almost like, hey, he's our secret weapon. We got to stop talking about him before we get there. But it definitely has a feel of them feeling confident about what they can do once they get to week 1 against Washington and Jaden Daniels. And that Carter's addition to what they already have is going to help them, turn it up a notch and turn it up another level. So that adds a lot of intrigue to the start of the week. And then also, of course, wanted to talk tonight about Giants sleepers, players on this roster who aren't as obvious right off the bat that they're going to be either key components, starters, or even just guys who chip in that we didn't think a couple of weeks ago were going to be factors. And, this is a name that now, people are talking about a little bit here and there. But I think my number one sleeper, and that would be a candidate to have a significant role on this team and maybe exceed expectations out of the gate would be Marcus Bowe, the rookie tackle out of Purdue. 5th-round pick, some health issues, and some, body strength that needs improvement there, the different reasons why he fell to the 5th round. But, and there should be an asterisk on the play that, listen, he's been working a lot against, number twos, backups, reserves, things like that. But you saw it in the preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, and you're seeing it in some of these practices. He's holding his own. He looks like a competitive football player out there who is winning his fair share of reps. They're working him on both sides of the line. They're working him on different units. He's worked some with starters. Jermaine Illuminor is the starting right tackle, obviously. And then you have James Hudson as the starting left tackle while Andrew Thomas is not on the field. But behind that, it's just Josh Azudu and Marcus Bowe. And then, so anytime Illuminor is missing time or Hudson has to step out, the Giants are using those opportunities to get Marcus Bowe more significant reps, more prominent reps, get him against, starting edges and things of that nature. And obviously it's not going to look as clean when you make that jump against the better competition always. But I think there's no doubt about it that, it looks like there's a chance Bowe could be a sleeper. Whereas, I feel like Cam Scatterbo being a 4th-round pick, that is the most popular sleeper. That's the player who right off the bat, you could tell it wasn't a sleeper anymore. It was a player that the Giants, in their minds, they felt like that he could be a factor. They wanted to incorporate him early, right? Like all of those things that, in the Giants' eyes, he belonged. He fits well into the way that they want to run their offense. They envision him like plugging a role in the backfield that they don't have guys who can serve in that role consistently. And so, Cam Scatterbo being a 4th rounder, so, not an early round pick. So a guy who, if he contributed significantly once he gets healthy, but that's the popular one. That's the name that kind of jumps off everybody's tongue when you think of a young Giants player who maybe is going to pop, who isn't one of those 1st rounders. But certainly Marcus Bowe is a name and a jersey number 71 out there that every day now I think you're looking for, you're eyeing, you're watching, and you're intrigued by, because their tackle depth has been a major issue in recent years. And frankly, I'll just be totally honest, Hudson as the left tackle behind Thomas, if James Hudson has to start in week 1, is he going to handle that for 4 quarters, or is Marcus Bowe going to give him a run for that job? Because, listen, you don't want to hang your entire job and livelihood if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Shane on a rookie left tackle in week 1. But the point is, if you have depth and competition created by your 5th-round pick with your free agent signing, you also have Illuminor to slide over in a pinch, even though you obviously don't want to do that. But if you just give yourself more substantial options, and it's not putting somebody in there who's going to be a turnstile the second that your starter goes down, that's a step up. So we'll talk more about other sleepers, but Marcus Bowe is a name I wanted to bring up right off the bat as we talk about the Giants and lead into this Jets game. But I see everybody in the queue. I'm going to jump right into your questions in a second. Just want to remind you, our sponsors are MyBookie Sportsbook, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and Sal Loretta for Men. You can see our sponsor codes on the bottom of the screen. But our lead segment there, our discussions about Kayvon, about Justin Fields, about throwing some shade the Jets' way, and about our top sleeper, Marcus Bowe, the rookie 5th-round tackle. That is our hook of the episode, brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Talkin Ball is the code at hooksrub.com. Whether you're tailgating or home gating for these Giants games and NFL games, you're going to want to use Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Jared, our good friend, diehard Giants fan, originally from Houston, he owns and operates Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. This will give your grill serious flavor with a bold seasoning lineup. All natural, no junk, big barbecue, Texas flavor to keep fans coming back for seconds. This is one of their many award-winning flavors, smoke and sweetness. So you want to start there and then branch out. We gave away the midnight the other day. We're going to have another trivia giveaway question brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices tonight. So stay tuned for our Giants trivia question, where you will, if you get it correct first, you will send me your information and we will get that mailed out to you. So thanks for participating. Thanks for Hooks, Rubs, and Spices for sponsoring us. Again, it's hooksrub.com/talking ball. I say this every episode, guys, but please support our sponsors. That is the best way to support Talkin Ball, to support Talkin Ball Live. And if you love what we do here, you love this community, that's the best way to keep it going, because the sponsors are what keeps this running and is helping us grow. And so I'm really grateful to all of you. Reminder, if you want a comment or question answered first, you can purchase a super chat or super sticker, and it will be elevated to the top of our queue. It will be a question or comment that I will address either immediately or next after I'm done addressing the previous point. And as always, while we are live, hit those like buttons and subscribe if you haven't already. All right. We see a super chat roll into the queue, right on cue. It's Joey B. What's up, Joey B? Great to see you. Joey B says, who is our starting defense, and are we going to do a 4-3 with Abdul and Dex in the middle with Burns and Thibodeau on the outside? All right. So check my DMs. You got it, Joey B. Will do. All right. So thank you for the super chat. First of all, I have to admit, I'm getting antsy for the regular season. Like it's starting to feel like the fall. Like the weather's not feeling like that yet, really, but it's starting to have that feel of, first of all, we know that, Dunkin' Donuts is going to jump the gun and have that pumpkin iced coffee, in there by the time it's like August 20th, if it's not there already. And then, I can just feel the real games coming as you're asking me questions about this. Like, I know we're talking about Jets Giants preseason, but I almost feel like we're right around the corner. We're getting there. All right. So starting defense profiles, as you're talking about base, right? Yeah. So if they're running base, or they're running, like, let's say a third down package with 4 down linemen, they've shown, Burns, Dexter, Carter, and Thibodeau up front. So it would be a Debo at one corner spot, and then either Banks or Flott at this point at the other corner spot, unless somehow Art Green gets back on the field and ends up pushing them both out and winning it. But I guess it's going to be Banks or Flott. Drew Phillips would be, so this is assuming all these guys are healthy. Drew Phillips would be the slot corner. Tyler Nubin would be the safety along with Javon Holland. And then your linebackers there would be Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. So that would be the defense. The top 11. Now there's other variations of that, with Roy Robertson Harris on the inside with Dexter, or when Dexter comes out, it's Nacho and Roy Robertson Harris, or it's Alexander and Roy Robertson Harris, or Alexander and Nacho, right? All those different combinations inside. And then if Carter's not on the inside, he's either rotating on the outside with Thibodeau / Burns, or there are times where they will slide him back to off ball, get a little bit more speed out there. Maybe they spell Micah McFadden for a third down play. In their dime packages, Dayton Belton is the first man up in the secondary as that third safety and kind of that star position in the defense. So that is what it looks like. Now, as I said, health is something that you're always monitoring with these guys. Phillips is kind of working his way through something. Nubin left practice early the other day. So, and Dexter obviously is kind of acclimating and getting there. So all things to look for from some of those players, but that answers your question, Joey B. And thank you for the super chat, kicking us off on the right foot. Chris Spires checks in with another super chat. Thank you, Chris. He says, I'm very nervous Neighbors is not going to stay healthy this year because the injury is worse than they let on. Yeah, Chris, it's very interesting. I mean, I will say, to try to put a positive spin on it at first, when we discuss this, I would say that Malik, there were plenty of times last year where once he's dealing with something or banged up a little bit or nicked up, a full practice wasn't necessarily a thing, like he was Like there were times out there where it felt like even once it got cold into the winter time that he was doing less, as he was also dealing with a toe or whatever it was. I think that, so I guess what I'm saying is there's precedent for Malik Neighbors not practicing full or a lot or at all at times, and for him still going out and performing and producing. I don't disagree with you, though, that this is a concern. The toe is certainly a thing. Like, he's going to be managing it all season. My understanding, and this is very reliably told to me, my understanding is this is considered or has been considered an off-season conversation, the toe. So in other words, what that tells you is it was discussed this offseason, which is what Neighbors pointed out to everybody in the first place. And then from there, it becomes a question of, well, okay, so if he's going to need surgery, when is it? The answer is if it wasn't going to happen this offseason, it would be postponed until next, would be the idea. But that is disconcerting that there's some lingering potential surgery need for the guy that you're going to need most on your offense to produce. So, and listen, he's been nicked up, banged up, all those things. Now, I will say this. When he's been on the field, he's been electric. He's been unguardable by the Giants defensive backs. So, I think it's totally fair as a fan to be concerned and to want to see that everything's okay, to want to hear that everything's okay. I think clearly their priority with all of these players, Neighbors included, is to get them to week 1 able to participate in that game. Now, I will say this, though. The Giants in the past have erred on the side of not doing enough. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, I heard, who was it? Was it Shane? Joe Shane, I believe, said on one of the interviews that you have to play football to be ready for football. And I agree with that, but I feel like while the Giants are playing starters as they did a little bit against the Bills, things like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they played starters again against the Jets in this game a little bit. I think that they sometimes, and they tend to, err on the side of resting players and kind of putting them in bubble wrap and listening to the player instead of maybe always paying attention to the workload the guy needs to be prepared to play real football. And then once the guy gets onto the field in weeks 1 or 2, it ends up backfiring. But it's a fine line, right? It's not an easy thing because you're gauging, trying not to work guys' bodies too much, as well as if they have an injury or something they're managing, you don't want to aggravate that. But at the same time, you don't want to put them so in bubble wrap that when week 1 or 2 comes, that they don't go on the field and hurt themselves because their bodies aren't ready and not used to taking a beating and to the grind. So you do have to find a sweet spot. I always feel like the Giants have done not enough for the most part throughout the years that I've covered them, consistent with, same training staff, a couple different front offices, several different head coaches, same training staff. There's a lot of management going on right now in collaboration with Aaron Wellman, who's back in the organization, and a lot of management of workloads of players and a lot of, direct attention and detailed attention to what all these guys are handling and putting on their bodies and doing. So I remember years ago talking to Wellman in an interview when he first was with the Giants. I want to say would this have been 2016 maybe? And I remember asking him about injury prevention, and he said at that time that he doesn't like using the terms injury prevention. He likes to talk about injury mitigation because you can't control completely whether guys are going to be able to stay healthy or not, but you can put measures in place and have smart structure and systems in place to do your best to tailor workloads to specific players and also pay attention to the need to get these guys' bodies ready for real football. Like Joe Judge, one thing I agreed with him on very much was the idea of you need to, in some ways, callous your body against the beating you're going to take for real football. if you don't do that in the offseason and in training camp, you will be shocked into the regular season. And sometimes guys' bodies are going to break down, or the team is going to fold because you're not ready for the resilient nature of having to push through to the fourth quarter and to finish that game. And so that's something, this is a topic that's been very, very, I would say, directly connected to the Giants, failures over the years. Chris says, do you have an update on Cam Scattaboo? It's believed to be a hamstring, Chris, and has the feel of them just keeping him completely off of it for now. My sense on Scattaboo is based on the fact that, listen, he's not on the field now. He's not going to participate in this game, obviously. So then we get into a short week against the Patriots. I think this is a situation where we're probably not going to see him play in a preseason game. I don't know that for a fact. That's how it feels, though, based on how little you see him and how little he's doing. And so my guess is that either ready week 1, but without game experience in the preseason, or ramped up through some, once they can get a couple good, padded practices under his belt, get some installs and get him healthy, get him back in one of the first couple weeks of the season there. But the indefinite timetable, but it does feel with him like, listen, we know that he got banged up, came back in, and then aggravated it again. And so it's definitely, it's more than just something that's nagging. It's a legit injury. Thank you for all those super chats. You guys are the best. All right, let's see. We got Peterstown checks in, says, hey, Pat, love the show. Being honest, what is your opinion on the running backs for this year? The line being what it is, notwithstanding. I think a healthy Scattaboo creates some more balance to the room and gives them flexibility for different usages of these backs. I'm encouraged lately, and by lately I mean this week, by Devin Singletary's performance. He is a vet, and he has been putting his best foot forward. Tracy is obviously a very talented player. His ball security is bothering me in the last week or so. He had one ripped out just after his knee touched the ground in the preseason opener. He had one hit the ground that I don't know if it was ruled a turnover or not in 11-on-11 against the Jets, but it looked like it came out again. That is concerning me a little bit. Definitely one of those rooms where you'd feel a little bit better about having somebody closer to an A-lister rather than, let's say, three Bs. You'd rather have an A B, and a C than three Bs. But, I think if Scattaboo is healthy, that's another guy who catches passes well out of the backfield, who also brings an edge and some short yardage element. And then you have Elijah Chapman cross-training at times as a fullback in short yardage. So they're trying to make it work with what they have. Joey B reminds everybody to smash and like to subscribe and tell a friend to join. Let's get these numbers up. The more, the merrier. Thank you, Joe. So do we think the Giants or the Jets win on Saturday after what you've seen in practices the last 2 days, says Joey B. So I think if the Giants play mostly backups in the game, Joey B, I think the Giants defense is a steep drop off from the starters to the reserves, at least from what we've seen. And so I think the Jets reserves on offense and the Jets backups on offense against the Giants defense is not going to look great, just like it didn't look great for a lot of those drives with the Bills once the backup Giants defense was in. So I would go with the Jets for that reason. But, Jackson Dart could, bring some mojo again. Jameis Winston against the backup Jets defense. Hey, man, bombs away, right? So I think the Giants could do some damage too, especially with the fact that Jameis is their third stringer at the moment. I do think, no one's told me this, but Dable said something today. We were talking to him on Zoom, and Brian Dable said something about so it was how much do the joint practices affect who plays in the preseason game? Because he already wouldn't answer a question about whether the starters would play. He said, I wouldn't say it affects it. We'll make a decision we think is best. There's no substitute for tackling. There's no substitute for cleaning the pocket. There's no substitute for run after catch when you're going to get hit. There's no substitute for being live as a quarterback in the pocket. But we'll end up deciding at the end of the day what we think is right for our team. Now, he has consistently said to us going into this week, he has consistently said, guys who are available to play will play. That's what he said about the Bills game. But it seemingly has been a mantra for the offseason, for the camp, right? And so the way I've taken him saying that is that for these preseason games, I think we're going to see the starters again. It could just be, again, one drive for Russell Wilson and the starters on offense. Maybe we see Jackson Dart go behind that first string O-line. I would love to see that. I'd be curious to see that. If we do see that, that would be very intriguing. That would be the story of the game. That is the story right now, is when does that happen, right? That's the story. But I do believe that we're going to see some starters in this game, and so that would be intriguing. Now, again, no one has told me definitively that's the case. But what I hear when I hear Daboll saying that is our team needs to be ready to play, and there's no other way to get them ready than to have them do it. And so I want to see them do it. So that's what I hear him saying there. But we'll have to wait and see. That also doesn't mean that, like in the first game against the Bills, they played a bunch of starters. They also sat out a bunch of guys, right? Like I think it was Neighbors, Slayton, and who was it? And Hyatt. Was it Bo Collins too? Like all four of them didn't play in that first game, maybe. So, or at least the top three that I mentioned. So we could still see like plenty of guys sitting out. Joe says, Pat, Daboll refuses to talk about Neighbors, has not practiced in a week. Can he never practice and only playing games? Yes, because they give him a lot of leeway. I mean, Daboll like literally revealed, this is something that I believe I reported on last year, but like that, I mean, they give him input into the offense like the head coach does. I mean, they coddle him, but they also spend a lot of attention, and Daboll spends a lot of attention on that relationship because, he's everything for their offense. So yes, that is possible, Joe. Cameron says, do you think Evan Neal wins the starting right guard position? No, I don't. I think, all right. So couple answers to this. Number one, had lunch yesterday, had the pleasure of dining yesterday after practice and sitting at practice a little bit with the great, the one and only Leonard Marshall, Giants legend. And I asked him what he thought of practice. And he said, he liked the energy that the team brought. He saw some things he hadn't seen in previous years. And without me asking him about anybody specific, he mentioned that the guy that he thought stood out in a good way was Evan Neal. And he wasn't commenting about every single rep and this was good, or he won this one, lost that one. But Leonard said that he liked Evans, his motor, his energy, his pad level, and his compete level. He felt like what was at another level than what he's seen. And he was excited about that. And that's good to hear, obviously. Now, that does not change the fact, on the other hand, though, that, when Neal does have bad reps, he ends up on the ground. It tends to blow up the play. And so the Giants are certainly trying to give him every opportunity to. The fact that he was back on the field after tweaking something and being out days prior and missing the Buffalo game, that's good to see. He definitely has to get through games like this Jets game and play at a solid level to even be in the conversation you're talking about there, Cameron. I also find it interesting that over the last several days, the Giants have started cross-training some of their backup centers as guards as well. We've seen movement around the line that we hadn't seen from some guys early on who were, playing center and also are playing guard now too. And you guys all know the names that are there, right? It's the Austin Schlottmans, the Brian Hudsons, and then, it's Greg Van Roten up there with Evan Neal, but then it's also Jake Kubas, who's having a rough camp. Kubas is really struggling. And so there's a lot of tinkering going on there. There was even, a flip flop of Schlappman and Kubis in one of the sessions there between center and guard. So I think that's related to their play of their reserve guards. I think it's also with an eye on, Neil has to take it to another level, I think. But I thought that was instructive that Leonard Marshall, a guy who would know what a good offensive or bad or vulnerable offensive lineman might look like. To his eyes, he thought he saw 73 looking much improved. So that was good to hear. I personally think, though, in the end, that job is not going to be his, but we will see. Let's see. Chris says, Chris, thanks again for this super chat. I would love to have seen Jackson Dart compete for the starting job instead of handing Wilson the job. I agree. I agree, Chris. I think that they've been bringing Dart along at a steady pace. And now I think that what he's putting on the field should be earning him more opportunities. I also believe, Chris, that at this point where we are with Jackson Dart, shouldn't you be starting to get him reps in this preseason game against the Jets and practices? Shouldn't you be starting to work him into the starters with the first string offensive linemen, into those, getting some of those reps, running some of those plays with those players? Like early on in the season, if the Wilson experiment goes poorly quickly, who's kidding themselves? Like he's definitely Jackson Dart going to be in the mix to play early. Like I just don't imagine, I can't see the Giants putting him on ice. It doesn't, it would make sense if he didn't take advantage of some of these opportunities he's had, but in the last week and a half, especially, he's really stepped up. He's really, he's earning more. So he should get more opportunities. Jameis Winston should get more opportunities too, or they should trade him. Because, it doesn't make sense to give him like no reps. It doesn't make sense. Let's see. Joey B speculates that Neighbors' toe is cooked and they don't want us to know. I don't think that's it, Joey B, but it's definitely a lingering thing. GCN thinks Antoine, who covers the Jets, seems too high on Justin Fields as the quarterback. Yeah, not enamored with what we saw from Fields the last couple days. I will say this about him. He can absolutely fly. Like, and this is on a field with professional athletes. So like when he's running full speed, oh boy, he is cooking. But yeah, the passing game matters too, right? Joey B throws it out there, says, if anyone is going to the game Saturday, I will be at the J18 tailgate. If you want to come, say hi. Appreciate that, Joey B. Try to stop by if I can. Right. If Neighbors did need an operation, his season would be over, says Joe. Without him in the lineup, Giants will score 6 points a game. Well, we're not there yet. But yeah, an operation or an operation or any kind of procedure would completely devastate the Giants season. No doubt about it. Antonio, great to see you. Do I expect Evan Neal and Jalen Hyatt to play this week? I expect Evan Neal to play. And, he fully practiced this last practice. Jalen Hyatt did not practice yesterday in the second practice against the Jets and has not done much. So I can't say that I expect him to be on the field against the Jets. That is, I would say, feels up in the air, or maybe he would play, but be limited. Joe says, Pat, Fields had a camera on his helmet in the Daily News picture. What is that for? Did the Giants QB have it on? Can anyone see that video? That was a GoPro that Fields was wearing. So that would be something that the Jets had him do. So I believe that was Jets content he was creating there. Chris with another super chat. Thanks for the support, Chris. He says, wonder why the Giants did upgrade. Wonder why the Giants, I think you mean, did not upgrade the wide receiver position when they knew they were going to draft a rookie quarterback. Well, essentially, they invested in, like, if they had let Slayton walk and signed Josh Palmer, you might feel differently. But essentially what they did was they ended up using that money and re-signing Darius Slayton. They didn't land Palmer. They re-signed Darius. They keep a familiar face and a guy who has produced even when the organization didn't believe in him, and is, obviously a staple giant now, like a long tenured giant as far as this roster goes. So, they have poked around on the receiver market, Gabe Davis being one of those names we've talked about, but nothing doing there. I agree with you, though, Chris, especially I've said this before. I think they need more competition in the slot, even for Wandale. I would have liked to see that. I mean, Montreal Washington has had a good camp. Also, though, does have the dropsies at times. So a good player, but has a history of dropping the ball or fumbling. And so, has had a great camp, but you again, just like the running back room we talked about, you would love the receiver room, just like the running back room, to just have one more B+ in it. All right, let's see. Luann says, I agree. The team seems energized and different. I feel good about this season. Joey B says the camera is to go through his reads and see what he can go back and watch the film to see what needs improvement or not. Interesting. GCN says, Pat, all teams do not have to inform on injuries until week 1. So before game 1, the Giants offense could have big problems. Well, they're definitely putting these guys on plans to try to get there in one piece. But like I said, you can err too far on the side of caution and not have guys ready to play. So that's the balance. Patrick thinks Hyatt will be on the practice squad. Ooh, that would not go well. That would not go well. Do the Giants and Jets use meta headsets to simulate plays and game situations like Washington? I believe that's growing more popular around the league. I don't know if the Giants are using that or the Jets are using that. I want to say they have it available now, but I'll have to that'll be something to ask. I think they do, but when I talk to the quarterbacks here, they're never raving about using it either. So, Patrick pointing out great footwork. Oh, you're talking about Bo, probably. Yeah, no, and he's not off balance when he's taking on blockers typically. Joe says Mike Tannenbaum, former Jets GM, said the Giants should start Jackson Dart from game 1. Dr. Garrett says, hi, Pat. Love the show. I know you're from Philly and grew up an Eagles fan. Setting your job aside, is your fandom still with the Eagles or are you a Giants fan? Appreciate you. I did grow up in Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia. We've talked about that on the show. I tell people this all the time, whether you believe me or not, doesn't matter, but you end up rooting for individuals once you do this as a job, especially for long enough. Like my training ground was going to the University of Notre Dame as a student. And like one weekend I would be in the stands rooting for them. And then the next weekend I would be in the press box, shirt and tie, covering the game, and I wasn't allowed to cheer. And that was like a crash course in that professionalism and that kind of flip to the next mode of, if you really want to work in this, how you have to behave, those types of things. And, so that zaps a lot of the fan out of you, which is, listen, I'm very fortunate to have the job I have, but they warn you when you talk to people about going into this profession about that can happen to you, where it can go the other way and you can be trying so hard to be objective. And then eventually you don't get the same enthusiasm out of it because you're not able to cheer for anyone as a fan. Because you've worked so hard to be the reporter and the objective third party. So you still want to have some passion about it. I just find myself extremely happy for people that I care about or that I form relationships with or that I'm fond of or that I have, whatever the case is. I mean, that goes back to hockey, like where I grew up a Flyers fan. And then by the end of covering the Rangers, I cared so deeply about that team. I wasn't a fan of the team, but now I follow the Rangers as if I were a fan of them for a long time, especially when they go on the playoff runs that they've had. because there was some attachment to them, that formed. And it was the Kreiders and the Lundqvists and the Stahl, Girardi, Zuccarello, Hagelin, Brassard, all those guys. And so with the Giants, it's kind of the same way. Like, there's guys on the Giants that you guys know, Benny Fowler, my co-host for this podcast, plenty of times, and sometimes a great guest as well. But we just bat it back and forth about the NFL. But Benny, is a great example of somebody who, whatever, like when he left the Giants, he was playing on the Saints, whatever it was, I was pulling for him there. Like, so he recovered, I remember, an onside kick for the Saints in a game, and I'm not a Saints fan, but I was excited for him that he did it. Slayton's a good example of a guy on the Giants who, like, you feel good for him when he does well. He's a good person. He treats you well. He works hard, and, the organization did him wrong at one point, but he stuck with it, so you feel good for people like that you pull for. So it's not, like when I was at the Super Bowl, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I was happy for Saquon, Nick Gates, Paris Campbell, like, these guys who are good people, good to me, hard workers. They care, they work hard, and you form a bond with these people and relationships with these people. So you're not cheering for one team or another, but especially as you stay in the league longer, even if you're with a team, like for me, I cover the NFL, but I'm also with the Giants every day. And so being with the Giants every day for now, this is my 10th season. The longer you're around, the more coaches and players leave the Giants and they go elsewhere. They're around the league, they're in college, all those things. And so suddenly you have so many connections around the league. Even if you haven't stepped foot in some of those buildings and practice facilities, you have friends that are now there. And so you keep an eye on these different organizations and people, and you feel good for them when they succeed or they get a better job or whatever it is. But that is my genuine answer. So no, I'm not sitting there cheering on the Giants on Sunday. I'm not sitting there cheering on the Eagles on Sunday, but I am pulling for, in my own way, the people I care about, the people I like. I will say, Jackson Dart's got some of that to him. Like, it seems like a good young man who's working hard and trying to do it right. Seems like an easy guy to root for, wouldn't hate it if he had success in New York at all, man. That would be a great story. And, talk to a lot of people around him who say, if anyone deserves it, it's him. So a great example of how something else could develop there. Great question. I'm a fan. I don't think Neighbors will play in this game, no, because he hasn't been practicing. GCN says, Pat, on the official Giants propaganda YouTube channel, they said all this resting of Giant players was load management, so they are load managing Neighbors for the whole preseason and season. So there's truth to the fact that this is load management in a lot of ways. Like I said, Aaron Wellman and the training staff and Ronnie Barnes and all that, those collaborations related to that. And they're paying close eye to and close attention to that with detailed plans tailored to all these players and all of that. But the reason why, like you jokingly say, the propaganda YouTube channel, but the reason why that's disingenuous to say is because it's not apples to apples for every player. It's not across the board. Everything's fine. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's going to miss it's not like no one's going to miss time early on. These guys are all just managing things and they'll all be ready. Like, that's not true. Some of these guys, they're just being cautious. Some of these guys have an injury, but not a long-term one. Some of these guys have something that's nagging that could turn into something worse. So they're all different situations, which is why that's a disingenuous way of talking about it, like you said. So, yeah, that's interesting. We have another super chat in the queue. This is a $10 one coming from Into. What's up, Into? Great to see you. Into says, lack of depth is still an issue. Is it poor player acquisition, inability of staff to develop players? Both. 4 years in and depth of roster makeup is still an issue. Yeah, so for me, I go back to the draft in a lot of ways. So, like, if you look at So the Giants, when they got here, Joe Shane did the old, you build through the draft and supplement through free agency. Like that was the plan, right? And, the only way to build is to draft well and to, you got your homegrown players and all of that. But if you look at the Giants roster, a lot of the places they are deficient is draft picks who either haven't worked out or who are underachieving or still pushing and trying to get there. Like, a good example, the wide receiver position. They drafted Malik Neighbors. Obviously, he's a top 10 pick, and that looks like a direct hit as far as talent goes. But then the other two selections, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, a guy who's not even involved really, and is still banged up, and who knows what's going to happen there. And then Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy who's been featured and been a part of the offense, but who has not lived up at all to the second round selection. And that was too high to draft him in the first place, I think. But, a good example, like you're asking about depth, receiver room is where I start there. It's like the top 4 receivers you think of when you list their roster, 3 of them are draft picks and 2 of them are guys that you're hoping are going to be better than they have been. So, you could go to the offensive line room, another great example, right? They drafted Evan Neal, top 7. They drafted Josh Azudu that draft. They drafted Marcus McKeithen. They drafted John Michael Schmitz, right? Now they've drafted Marcus Bowe. So they end up having to spend a ton of money in free agency. Left guard, John Runyon. Right guard, Greg Van Roten. Right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor, because none of those offensive line draft picks, other than Schmitz, have, become earned and held starting jobs. And Schmitz, of course, you look at that position, he's a guy who you want to see more from, right? So you see kind of like the consistent theme. Even the tight end position. Now, Theo Johnson's had a pretty good camp. Like he had a good week this week against the Jets. So, he deserves credit for that. Like if you saw the Theo Johnson all season that you saw this Jets week, that would be exciting. So, maybe he blossoms. But think about that position. It's trading for Darren Waller. It's drafting Daniel Bellinger. It's signing Chris Manhertz, right? It's taking all of these swings. Now they've added Fedone. They drafted Theo Johnson, right? Who is going to step up? And let's say Theo Johnson serves as a legitimate number 1 tight end. Can any of those guys pick up the mantle as a reliable number 2 in the passing game as well, right? Bellinger, good example of a guy who working at it, but just hasn't gotten there. You think about where else could you go? You could go to certainly the interior defensive line. Haven't figured that out from a draft standpoint, definitely. And then, the secondary. How about the secondary? Not only did Deonte Banks regress recently, but Trey Hawkins was a guy that they had super high opinions of, despite being a late round pick who hasn't worked out. Dane Belton, a guy with some ball skills, who is trying to earn a bigger role, but you selected and is not a starter, right? These are all now, yes, listen, you also have draft picks. Like I said, Theo Johnson's been looking good this summer. Micah McFadden has had a really good camp. And there's some examples of guys who are stepping up and not kind of lagging behind. But to answer your question and to give you the full kind of context, and I think that's a really good question of yours. I don't know if anybody disagrees with me or not, but that's where I see the depth of this roster not coming together. It's the high end you want high end talent as well, but the depth and high end, the reason it isn't complete, isn't filled in the way it needs to be here 4 years in now, is because, in my opinion, primarily they haven't drafted well enough. And that's part of the reason this is such a big season for many reasons. But it's like, they also put a draft now on the field where it's not just 2 first-round picks who have to impact your team positively, and they believe will, but also need to. but you're also now having a draft class that they're really hanging their hat on. They need Alexander to step up in the running game. Why? Because they don't have another solution there next to Dexter Lawrence consistently. It's Roy Robertson Harris. It's moving Carter around. And then it's really the kid. You have Marcus Bowe at tackle. Hey, great that he's stepping up. But is it going to be a dangerous thing and too much to put on him if suddenly you're relying on him early on this season at tackle with the starters to save your job, right? So you don't want to push these guys too far out of position and out of where they belong on the depth chart in their developmental track either. I want to remind you guys, great question. You need to go to MyBookie, sign up, get ready to play for this NFL season, because the NFL odds, a ton of them, Super Bowl futures, and all the way down the line are live and cooking over at mybookie.ag. And we're going to have Pat's picks rolling for week 1. Can't wait for that. Love doing the Pat's picks every week. We got, I can't remember exactly the percentage. I don't have it in front of me. It was something like 54 or 55% correct last year. So that's a solid percentage. Any of you who are aware, no gambling or, put money down week to week, that's a solid percentage, especially considering I made my picks against the spread for every game all season long. So that's brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie has tons of unique features, not just NFL either. WWE, UFC, great place to bet both of those. And the money bag partner picks and daily bet boost are all great features that a lot of other sports books don't have. If you use my promo code Leonard, Leonard, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus, redeemable all the way up to $1,000 in bonus funds. Minimum deposit is $50. Go to MyBookie today. And this MyBookie segment, this is another sleeper I wanted to bring up. And he's not a sleeper because he's a starter, but Micah McFadden really has had a strong camp. This is a defensive player who, he can be situational on this defense if Carter can also jump in and add some athleticism to the back end in passing downs as a blitzer off ball in certain situations. Good that Carter not only has the talent he has, but also can maybe give them a rotation both at the edge rusher spot and the defensive line interior spot, as well as off-ball linebacker. But I just feel like Micah McFadden has really been setting a tone this year inside. He's played physical. He's played hard-nosed. He really is playing 100 miles an hour. You saw that hit he had against the Buffalo Bills early on, right away in that first preseason game. And I think he's just really playing with an attitude. Like, all the talk is great, but you need to see the plays made. You love to see the Brian Burnses make the plays, but Micah McFadden, I think, has certainly been stepping up earlier. And maybe not a sleeper, but definitely not as popular of a name, but somebody who I think is a key cog in what the Giants believe they're building and the attitude that this team has and is showing, and also is really going to be a key factor in the sense of run stopping and trying to help the Giants in that area, whether it's, the D line getting much better at, not getting gapped and giving free runs to the second level, whether it's players like McFadden or Okereke on the back end, the second level, cleaning up those tackles, whether it's a guy like Tyler Nubin taking better angles to those tackles from the third level. The run defense is an extremely, extremely huge key, especially right off the bat against Washington there in week 1. That's going to be how Washington tries to prevent the Giants pass rush from getting after Daniels. So, McFadden is a player to watch there. Again, that segment brought to you by MyBookie. All right, we're going to have our Giants trivia question coming up here now. So those of you who have hung around, I appreciate you. Here's our Giants trivia question. Reminder, when we do our Giants trivia, I'm going to give you the question. Once the question is delivered to you here on the chat, you're going to write your answer in the comments section and enter it. The first person to enter the question correctly, that in the queue where it shows up, so it's the first one that is entered that I see, they will win a free Hooks rub mailed directly to you, a free sample. Basically should be one of these guys, and it'll help you get to cooking, get to grilling. hopefully will help that tailgate taste so much better as you're watching Giants Jets, as you're watching Giants Patriots, as you're gearing up for what I'm sure is going to be a big week 1 game watch for Giants Commanders. All right, here's your Giants trivia question. Your Giants trivia question of the week is, the Giants have 4 rookies who have amassed more than 1,000 yards from scrimmage as a rookie in the franchise's history. Give me the 4 top rookie scrimmage yard leaders for the Giants in their history in order. So 1 through 4, you don't have to give me their yardage, but 1 through 4, give me the 4 leading yardage getters for Giants rookie skill players. So again, Giants rookie scrimmage yards leaders 1 through 4 in order. So it's the top 4 guys yards from scrimmage as rookies for the Giants. First person with the right answer wins the bet. All right. Let's see. Yes, you would. You do need Jackson Dart to get reps with Malik Neighbors. Absolutely, totally agree. How far is Andrew Thomas? They won't say. This is definitely him not being on the field during Jets week is concerning. So I don't know why. I don't know why this has been something that they've pretended was going to be okay, and now it's looking like it might not be. We still have time. Again, like I said, Thomas is one of those guys, along with everybody else, who the whole way I've been told, others have been told, he's expected to be ready for week 1 against Washington. Joe Shane was the one who hedged at the start of training camp and said he should be ready. So it makes you nervous, especially if he doesn't get any playing time in the preseason. You want him to get his feet under him. So Chris, I definitely think at this point it's fair to wonder if week 1 is in question. But definitely if Patriots week comes here and he's not playing football, then you need to have a conversation maybe about more than just week 1. Mike says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is Neighbors going to be fully operational by week 1? Is him being held out of practice mainly precautionary, or is it a serious risk for his health this season? No, I think he's nicked up and banged up. But I think they're also being cautious, and he's being cautious as well to make sure that he's full tilt week 1. So as of this moment, Mike, I expect him to play in that game and to be full go. But obviously noticeable that, let's say, Brian Burns bangs up his foot and is playing fully through practices and torching the Jets O-line, and Neighbors isn't practicing. Joe says Scadaboo received a shot, then aggravated the injury, and his leg is sore. Usually a hamstring is 3 weeks. Let's see. Ja says the question is, could he beat the quarterback that everyone ignores? You're talking about, could Dart beat out Jameis? Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, listen, even in that second practice against the Jets, it was like Wilson just dinking and dunking, nothing going on. Dart makes a throw here or there, some up, some down, a botch snap, maybe a penalty, a completion, a nice quarterback run, whatever. And then Jameis comes in and drops a bomb down the sideline to Dalen Cambry for a touchdown. I mean, this is, this guy's getting no reps, but he's making the best of it. Let's see. GCN says, Pat, Chris Sims said he heard from the Steelers team and players that they did not like Wilson. Sims said with the connection the Giants have to the Steelers on why they signed Wilson. Why did they sign Wilson? Yeah, so you're saying why would they sign him if they have the Steelers connection and they have obviously access to that intel? Yeah, no, good point. Well, obviously they tried to go the route of Matthew Stafford. They tried to go the route of Aaron Rodgers. They tried to trade up for Cam Ward. So all those things didn't happen, didn't work out. Maybe they dodge a bullet with the Stafford back thing now. You got Rodgers a little bit banged up. Who knows? But certainly Russell Wilson was not the plan, GCN. So that's part of it. So, and then Russell was available. He was a guy that they brought in the previous year, couldn't guarantee certain things too, but was on their radar previously. And also the Giants are, let's just face it, they like to pretend that those storylines are fabricated and false or too negative until they rear their heads and they affect them. And then it becomes like the media's fault instead of their personnel evaluation's fault. So, what you're saying is absolutely true. There was a reason why so many teams in recent years have bailed on the Russell Wilson experience. And it's okay to be optimistic, going into the season and to see potential positives here with Wilson at quarterback, but to ignore the potential negative and the evidence of recent years of what we've seen in some of these organizations is also disingenuous. All right, let me see the trivia answers down here. So as I said, the question was rookie scrimmage yards leaders, give me them in order 1 through 4 in Giants history. So, let's see. So let's see. We have a bunch of answers with partially correct. Okay, I think Joey B is the first one to hit it. So the correct answer is Barkley, Beckham, Neighbors, Tracy. Barkley, Beckham, Neighbors, Tracy. So let's see. Let's see if anyone got it before you. Oh, man. GCN almost had it. GCN almost had it. He said Barkley, OBJ, Neighbors, and Joe Morris. Very close, GCN. Joey B, congratulations. You win some hooks, rubs, and spices. Joey B, I believe I have your contact info, but DM me your what do I need from you? I need your the name, address, and email address as well, and I'll get that over to Jared of Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, and he'll get the product out to you so those Giants tailgates can start sizzling and tasting great, even better out there. Though I'm sure you're cooking it up just fine for Saturday's game against the Jets. Reminder at Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, it's hooksrub.com, or you can use the code Talkin Ball for 15% discount. Please go there today. Support Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. It's a Giants fan, diehard Giants fan, Jared from Houston, originally owned and operated by that man who also supports our podcast as a viewer and listener. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. We smoke meat. Follow Hooks Rub at Hooks Rub on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube to subscribe, activate your pregame playlist, and join the Flavor family. Joey B, well done. Well done, my man. By the way, I think it's K Saint. K Saint, was it you who won the trivia last time? Yeah. K Saint, you need to send me your name, address, and email on Instagram. So my handle is PL on NFL, just like it is on YouTube. Because you won the trivia last time, the TJ Jones question. That was a tough one, a great one. You got it. And but you didn't send me your information, so I wasn't able to get the stuff sent out from Hooks, Rubs, and Spices yet. So K Saint, please send out to my Instagram. It's a direct message, PL on NFL. Direct message me your name, address, and email address. So Joey B and K Saint, you guys owe me that information on IG, please. Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, need a sip of water here. Getting a little scratchy. All right. Want to take this opportunity, too, to remind you about Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. So Boom Chaga is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplements right here over my shoulder into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally feel a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to start feeling the difference. And not just for this extract that you can put in coffee, tea, water. It's also the cold teas they make now, the Sweet Dreams, the Rise and Shine, the Midday Boost. Talkin Ball 25 is the code for your 25% off the subscribe and save option at boomchaga.com. The cold teas are awesome. I'm telling you. Go get them today. Again, support our sponsors. Thank you so much. All right. Coming down the whole home stretch here. Let's see what else we have in the queue. Thank you so much, everybody, tonight. It's been another solid chat. Reminder for all of you, post game Saturday night after Giants Jets, I will come back up to the press box at MetLife Stadium and go live right here on YouTube with all of you coming out of the locker room from talking to all the players and Brian Daboll. And I will have information at my fingertips on injuries, what I saw in person at the game, what I liked, what I didn't like. We'll spin it forward. We'll talk about what we expect to see in the Patriots week. We'll discuss how the roster is coming together and what the 53 man is starting to look like. Everything, all of it, up and down and in between. It'll be Talkin Ball post game live. That'll be Saturday. Giants Jets is late. It's 7 p.m. So it'll be late, but I know you sickos, just like me, you're up late, grinding the tape, grinding the stat sheet, going back, thinking about the plays that cost the team the game or the plays that won the team the game, who was clutch, who struggled, who won a roster spot, who's making it more difficult on the GM and the coach. We do all of that at Talkin Ball post game live right from the stadium after I come out of the locker room. Okay. J-Fed says, is Palmer really better than Slayton? I say no. No, I wasn't, J-Fed, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying, like, as there was possibility of Slayton leaving and then signing somebody else and all those things, I was just saying that, maybe because it looked new and it was a different name and somebody who came from a different team where you weren't watching them every day. So there's the hope of an improvement, and it's a player who you're incorporating, and it's like when it's new, it's exciting, and there's possibility for more. And so that was my point, was like the fact that even though Slayton's a good receiver, that it's the same name on the depth chart. That they paid him money, and they paid him a lot of money and more money than people thought they would. But it doesn't obviously to your eyes look like an upgrade because you're just retaining the same player. Right. So that was kind of my point there. It was like it was the same guy rather than trading it out. Joe says, yeah, Pat, Stafford had an Airstream trailer at camp to heal his back with all kinds of treatments. They said his back would be fine and he could play now. What about when he gets hit? Yeah, no, that's like a hold your breath situation for the Rams. And like I said, maybe the Giants got away with one. Who is better, Pat's or Geno's steaks in Philly, or is there another? Steve Steaks is the best. Jim's is also excellent. Also love D'Alessandro's, but Steve Steaks is where I send everybody. Bustleton and St. Vincent in the Northeast. There's a couple of them. There used to be 3 of them. I don't know if there's still 3, but Steve Steaks is where you want to go. Right, like you can root for Daniel Jones now that he's gone on the Colts, even though you're not a Colts fan. Who made me want to become a beat reporter? Man, that's a great question. Long story, but basically, I would say I always loved sports. I love playing sports. And, in school, I took to writing in general, like English classes, short stories, all those types of things. And I just decided that felt like what I was best at, writing and communicating, and what I loved the most, sports, was what I wanted to combine into my profession. So this became my dream job in a lot of ways because of that. My dad dabbled in it a little bit, but wasn't like his career. And but he had the interest and the intrigue. And so I was on the box scores in the paper every day and reading the newspaper and things like that. Gary Smith from Sports Illustrated was really the writer who, now obviously I'm not doing that kind of writing for the Daily News, but kind of romanticized it for me and really made it feel special and something like other, kind of like out of this world to me. So Gary Smith's writing, I've never met Gary Smith, but those were the stories that always stuck with me. Are they going to suspend Dart's license because of the tickets? I'm sure after that went viral that the Giants are probably on the case there. I would hope they are. J-Fed jokes that Dart is Mormon. He doesn't believe in paying tolls. GCN says, it's funny. GCN says Pat Shane is a bad GM for draft picks and capologists. Where the hell are the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round draft picks that you need to hit on? Thibodeau, number 5 overall compared to Carter, number 3. A lot of bad picks drafted too high. Yeah, no, sub hits, but not enough. JFed thinks that George Pickens is a head case. Talented, yes, but the Steelers already grew tired of him. Pass. Well, he looks. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, he looks good in Dallas, though. I think that's going to be a good fit there. Yeah, Giants need talent, no doubt about it. Anything betting over 50%, you are making money. Exactly, GCN. No, I was proud of last season, man. I mean, if you followed every bet of mine and bet every bet of mine against the spread all season, you made plenty of money with my bookie. TJ Toto says he would extend Micah McFadden before the season starts. Yeah, I'm still not there. I think I would want to see it, or I would, based on the Giants and how they operate and where they see certain guys, I would think that would not be something they would do at this juncture, but that's not me. That's not somebody telling me they're not going to do it. That hasn't been anything I've heard on their end. I know they like organizationally Muasau as well, one of their draft picks. H-Town, health and wealth to all. Thank you for saying that. As always, thanks for checking in. Joe says, Pat, the Bills GM signed Cook, the running back, and all their homegrown players. Shane is not on the same level as the Bills' current GM. Right, that's his mentor, and no, he is not. H-Town says, why isn't Turbo getting a real look at a bigger role on the team? He's definitely explosive with the ball in his hand. One move and go upfield, no dancing around. Yeah, fair question. I think I feel like the hands out of the backfield at times can be an issue, and then he's battled injuries in the past, has also been an issue. Listen, if he keeps playing well like this, he's knocking on the door, but the depth chart is just what it is right now. As long as Singletary's on the roster and Scattaboo is not like on IR, you have 3 guys ahead of you. So are they keeping 4 running backs in the active roster? It's really also about special teams too. Like Miller has to make the team, he has to be a valuable special teamer who's also going to be able to handle the rock, because even if he's a running back who has juice and he's, playing well and he's making the team, he's still not going to be like a lead back carrying the ball on offense. He's not going to play that much on offense unless they need him to because of injuries to guys ahead of him, in which case then you still have to be a valuable special teamer. Let's see. Oh, okay. No, Chris, I did not see this last super chat. So that was where the Pickens comment was. Okay. Chris said to me the biggest draft mistake was taking Wan'Dale Robinson over George Pickens. And JFed says Pickens is a head case, talented, yes, but Steelers already grew tired of him. Pass. JFed, all due respect, I mean, for you to say you'd rather have Wan'Dale Robinson than George Pickens is pretty wild. I know what you're saying about managing him, but like, listen, Neighbors is tough to manage, but he's extremely talented. So yeah, I would go with Chris there. That explains the Pickens name popping out of nowhere. Pedroza Auto Repair. Thank you, Pedroza says, year 4 of Dable and his pressers and media reporters still try and bait him or force him into questions. You all know very well he does not answer. Why is that? Does it get awkward with other reporters? Well, no, I mean, Pedroza is kind of the thing where, you could say, like, let's say tomorrow we have a press conference and I ask about Malik Neighbors' toe and Brian Dable is difficult about it. And then I try to double back to it or somebody else does. And it becomes awkward because he's unhelpful and we're frustrated because we can't get an answer, whatever it is. The flip side of that would be not asking the coach about the best player on the offense not practicing because of a toe injury that the guy said at some point will require surgery. So which would you rather us do? Would you rather us ask the question and try to get the answer, even if there's a likelihood he's not going to give it? Or would you rather us just not ask and give up? Right. Because like, that's not an alternative. But to your point, he certainly, especially at this point when injury reports don't have to come out, they don't owe any of these answers to us. And so it's not like, oh, I'm owed to know the answer to this or anything like that. But, it's the fan base wants to know, needs to know. So that would be my answer to that. I don't know if that answers your question, Pedroza, but like, does it get awkward? You said, I mean, it can. I mean, you just have to try not to take it personally on both sides. It can be hard to do at times, but you have to try not to take it personally because it really isn't, but it feels like it at times. Yeah, no exact update on Andrew Thomas injury and week one readiness. The whole time it's been a projection that he would be available, but as we get closer and he's not on the field, easy to question that and also to double back on where exactly we stand at all. Let's see. Pat says, evening, Pat. Any word on players you can see the Giants signing from the Jets? Seems like they always find a way to do that every year after joint practices. First of all, love the Pat Hanlon logo and graphic and name. I'm sure Pat, the Giants head of communications, would be flattered by this. Definitely a young Pat Hanlon there with the headset. I think you're absolutely right. The Giants do use those opportunities to closely scout those teams. Generally, it happens like on cut day and the waiver claims happen. You see like maybe one or two guys that they try to poach from the Jets cuts or the team that they practice against cuts, who they saw up close. I have not heard any word on who they would be eyeing there. But definitely we know the positions that they have needs at. We've talked about corner depth, interior defensive line. Maybe you try to add a little bit more competition even in juice at running back, things like that. What sticks out to me actually is with Tyrod Taylor injured, it's like, why are the Jets not calling the Giants about Jameis? That would be what I would say. Pat, was Thomas running any better? Moving any better? Can he run, or is he running in the pool? He can jog on the field. I've seen him jog. I've seen him do like cone work and stuff like that, like shuttle stuff. But he always ramps up pretty steadily from when I see it, and it seems like they're being very cautious. Joe says, does Notre Dame send the plane for you to games? They could have most NIL with the Notre Dame broadcast network money. I wish, Joe. I wish. Got to get there one day. Got the diploma. Great response. Thanks, says Pedroza. Thank you. Great question. And thank you so much for the super chat. Let's see. J-Fed says, if you're betting Saturday, take the Giants. All right. You heard J-Fed. Like I said, it's like Jameis, he could cook, and Jackson Dart maybe could cook against the Jets reserves, but the Giants defense, the first unit has been playing well. Behind them seems like a steep drop off on this roster. So I wonder if they would like give up a bunch of points late. That would scare me. I'm not gonna give you guys a bet to this game, but if J-Fed knows what he's talking about, J-Fed knows what he's talking about. Hirsch, what's going on? Great to see you. Great to see you. Guys, you guys are awesome. Joey B and K Saint, like I said, please direct message me your information to have that hooks, rubs, and spices sent directly to you. Really grateful to all the super chatters tonight. Joey B, Chris Spires, really MVP of the chat tonight. Into as well. And Pedroza closing with a very interesting question. We talked some Giants. We talked some football. We talked some sleepers. We talked about my career a little bit. We batted a lot of different topics back and forth. I loved it. This has been great. Reminder, these are the most fun, these post-game lives. Post-game Jets Giants on YouTube, right here on the channel, PL on NFL. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit those like buttons while we are live too. That tells the algorithm out there, shoots it out to Giants and NFL fans that we are doing this, that they need to come join us, be a part of this growing community. But after the Giants Jets, I will come upstairs back to the press box, and I will go live with all of you right here on YouTube and deliver you firsthand information from Jets Giants post game, from the locker room, from Brian Daboll, from the players, Love doing that. It's my favorite part of game days, and I can't wait for you to be there with me. J Fed says that's awesome, Pat. Awesome, J Fed, from you as well. Thank you so much to everybody for joining me tonight. If you missed any of the podcast, you can go back, rewatch the whole thing. Talked to Kayvon and Justin Fields. We talked some Marcus Bowe, Micah McFadden, everything in between. This is Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News and the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast. Brought to you by MyBookie, the sportsbook, hooks, rubs, and spices, and Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. Remember, guys, boomchaga.com, Talkin Ball 25, MyBookie, Leonard is the code, Leonard, and hooksrub.com, Talkin Ball is the code, as well as Salaretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey, outfitting me for all of my arrivals. Big time. First arrival coming on Saturday, pregame, Jets Giants. We will see you there. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thanks for the content. Pat says, somebody pretending to be Pat Hamlin. I'll take it. See you next time.